Welcome to Meditating with John Vervaeke. I'm a cognitive psychologist and a cognitive scientist at the University of Toronto, where I academically and scientifically study mindfulness and related phenomena like insight, flow, mystical experience, transformative experience, higher states of consciousness, the cultivation of wisdom, and the aspiration to enlightenment. Welcome. I am also a practitioner. I've been practicing Vipassana meditation, contemplation, and Tai Chi Chuan for over 29 years and teaching them for close to 20 years. This is a progressive course. Every Monday is a Dharma day, and on that day I teach a new principle, a new practice that builds on previous principles and practices. If you're joining for the first time, of course, you're welcome to stay, but go to the links in this description and that will take you to previous lessons. Tuesday through Friday are sit days. We meet. Sometimes I review what we did on Dharma Day Monday, and then we sit together. At the end of every day, there's a Q&A. I know some of you saw in the chat that we might not be able to do Q&A today because of some problems with Amar's internet, but that's not the case. Amar has been able to join us, and we will be able to take questions at the end. I would ask you, if you can, to remember to please like this video stream, because that will help raise its visibility on the YouTube algorithm, and that will help me reach as many people as possible with these sets of practices that I believe truly are very helpful to people, not only in general, but in our particularly pressing time. All right, so I don't think there's anything else one more thing. I did mention the Q&A, and we are going to be doing the questions after all. Please limit those questions at the end of today to the meditation practice. If you have more general questions, we do a live stream every third Friday of the month, 3 p.m. EST. Okay, I think that's everything. I've already reviewed the Dharma practice from Monday yesterday, so I think we're ready. So please set your phones to do not disturb. Get yourself ready into your posture, and we will begin when I say begin. Begin. Slowly come out of your practice, trying as best you can to integrate what you cultivated in your practice with your everyday consciousness and cognition, perhaps by reciting the 5 promises to yourself. So, thanks to Amar, I will be able to take some questions. Haranen Augustin, flies, how to deal with them? Can I kill them? Oh, so that goes towards the first promise. So that's a difficult question. And I struggle with some of those questions. I do change my diet, for example. Both Jason and myself, we don't eat mammals, precisely because I think they have a kind of life that they find inherently valuable to themselves. Other people may be vegetarians or vegans. I don't want to specify a particular place. I don't think I have the right to do that. I do appreciate and honor that you are reflecting on this question and the promise and what it means to you. I suggest what I do suggest to you is that you read more deeply into what it's like to build a consistent ethical and moral practice. There's some good introductory text, philosophical works. Um, I think that's much more important than me just stating what you should do, because that starts to shift it back to a rule or command. Instead, continue to do what you're doing. I honor it deeply. Reflect on what this means for you. Don't just do that in isolation. Read, start to cultivate. What would it be like? What can you do with genuine conviction and consistency? That's the important thing about the integrity here. So that's how I would answer you. I don't have the authority to make moral pronouncements. I'm just your teacher. Dimitar, I've been meditating on and off for a year, but I've been most consistent since you started this course. Thank you. You're welcome. Averaging, I think, 1 hour per day these 4 weeks. However, it takes me 30 to 40 minutes, video guided, to reach the end of the first core 3. And by then, my concentration is low. It's just mental endurance. I've only done meta and other lessons a few times. I don't feel like I'm progressing, but I have free time. Any suggestions? Yes, try to. I'm not quite sure what standard you're using, so maybe relax the standard a little bit about finding the core 4. Maybe, as I said, do the more light version of finding your route, where you just go through the center line and go through just here, right? The points in the center line. Maybe in your flow, right? You may be trying to get into a very deep state of absorption, and that is, again, good. But maybe, again, relax the standard a little bit. So just, maybe limit yourself. I'm going to spend maybe 3 or 4 breaths here, my back, get into the flow. I'm only going to count my breaths for, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. You don't want to get sort of set. It's called encoding specificity, so that there's always the expectation that it's going to take that long to get into your center and root. In fact, what you're trying to do is slowly, gradually erode at how much time it takes. Because if it's always taking 30 to 40 minutes, then it's never going to become second nature. So you have to try and trade a little bit. You have to give up on getting quite so deeply into those things so that you can get in them a little bit faster so that you can move towards becoming second nature. So maybe shift your standard instead of just depth of getting into the core four. It's all you're not just trying to get deeply in it in the meditation. You're trying to get into it deep enough that deep enough in shorter and shorter amounts of time so that it starts to become progressively more second nature to you. Perhaps reframing it that way, loosening the standards a little bit, shortening the time a little bit, and then redirecting what you're trying to do with the practice. That should help. You want it to be that you can just. That's what it is, a martial arts situation. To be able to get you're just into those things like that. It's got to be like second nature for it. Eventually. Sorry, I don't want to put any undue pressure on anybody with that, but slowly eroding the time, right? Giving only up a little bit on depth, and then you'll recover some of that depth as you do more practice, and you sort of dancing your way towards it taking not very much time at all. So Alexei Simonov, but with relaxing intensity, we will not compromise on zonal proximal development by lowering the standard. No, because you're still putting a demand on yourself, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to get you. Your question is helpful. Thank you. I'm trying to get you to keep the demand, but I'm trying to get you to the demand to distribute the demand not only in terms of intensity, but also into trying to get to a place where it's becoming more second nature to you. This is you're trying to develop this into like I said, an inhabited habit. There's a deep connection between the words habit. It was originally a cloak that the monk wore, and originally when you put the cloak on, it's like think about like a really woolen tunic, and it's really noticeable and it's great. All right, but over time, when you put on the cloak, eventually you put on the cloak and it becomes second nature to you. You become habituated to it. You inhabit it. That's what I'm trying to say. You want to be in the zone of proximal development. It has to be challenging, but it needs to be right. Your challenge isn't just how intense the absorption is in the core four, but also longitudinally. How much can I shorten this and just give up a little bit on the intensity and then stay there for a bit? And then can I shorten it and, you're right, I'll lose a little bit of intensity, but I'll stay there a bit and then the intensity will come back eventually, until you narrow it down. So it's a bit of a dance. And now that you're moving into more fine grain, you gotta, like I say, you gotta toggle it in. Simon Gedek Hermanson, could you specify again what counts as thoughts to count? Did listening, seeing colors behind your eyelids count? Yes. Anything that's sort of coming up like that, that's in any way a scene or a color or a sentence, yes, count it. Until you get, as I said, something in which you're not having any content of your experience other than perhaps that sort of inner blackness, which some people have for a while, and then that fades away too. Remember though, so your question is good, and I hope I've answered it, but remember, don't get into an unnecessary sense of demand of precision. Was that one thought or two, or was that a thought? Like if your initial intuition is it's a thought and I'll count it, then count it, okay? The mad truth. Sometimes when I notice and label the thought emotion and return to breath, I feel I'm ignoring, suppressing it, and that this is not healthy. Is this just my ego trying to hold on to it, or is it unhealthy? So there is a way of trying to address your concern, because I think it's a real concern. Have you tried meditating on so after you've noticed and labeled, have you done the practice of applying the 5 factors of inquiring mindfulness to the thought or emotion? Because that's a way of not ignoring and suppressing it, allowing it to express itself, but transforming it into an arena in which you are cultivating mindfulness in the depths of those automatic forms of thought that are happening pretty usually unconsciously for you. I don't mean that the thoughts are unconscious, but the process that generates them is unconscious. So one of the ways, that's one of the things about the 5 factors of inquiring mindfulness on distraction, is it allows you to not suppress or ignore, but instead to explore as a way of unpacking what's there, but transforming it into a friend, an arena in which you are cultivating a depth of mindfulness, inquiring mindfulness. Rainer Ludwig, what is the difference between focus and basic vipassana? When do you move from focus to vipassana? So when you found your focus, you're basically doing vipassana. So when you have that, when you've got that, you've got your focus here, it's focal here, and you have your all of your peripheral awareness, that field awareness throughout your flow. You're actually now in doing vipassana. So when I say then you do vipassana, what I mean is just keep doing what you've done when you've realized the core 4 and they're in process for you. Now, at some point, you want to move right from basic vipassana into deeper vipassana. But again, I can't give you a when to that. You just that's more something you'll get a sense of, and it'll change as you engage in the practice more. Simon Geddick Hermanson, could you get John, or me, could you get to put on some of the research regarding Cogsci on moving meditation? I could use it for my education. Yes, I'll try to do that. I apologize, everyone. I am looking at the Tai Chi videos. I'm looking at stuff. This is extremely busy time for me right now. We're just ending the January to April term at U of T, and I'm starting 2 courses in summer terms, which is equivalent because it's condensed to 4 courses. So it's a very busy time for me. And when things settle down a bit, I will get to doing a bit of that research and also put up a list of things for people. But please be patient with me. That's going to take me a bit of time. Lynn Slater. Hi, Lynn. What to do on days when the chatter in my head just won't stop? I can't even hear myself saying breath when I try to concentrate on my breath. Yeah, so those are very difficult days. You might try to switch to, so Lynn, I think if I remember you, when you were in the Wisdom saying, I taught you the walking meditation. And so when it's just like crazy, like you're saying, and I get that, and I know you're very honest with yourself, then try to move into a moving mindfulness practice as your sole practice for the day. So if you don't remember, I hope to be teaching you guys that very soon. But if you can remember, Lynn, I try to do the move, like a moving mindfulness practice, like the walking meditation, and maybe if you remember any of the Qigong or the each one, that would be helpful too. B. Athena, I'm considering acupuncture from some pain issues. What do you think about it? I think there's good evidence that for many kinds of issues, disorders and diseases, I'm doing like this because I want to apply those terms a little bit broadly than an infection or breaking, which they tend to be limited to in Western medicine. I'm not a critic of Western medicine, right? But I think we want to expand well-being beyond just being free of trauma, physical trauma, and free of infection. So I think there's good evidence that acupuncture can address a lot of these issues, especially issues that tend to fall between the cracks. What do I mean by that? Issues that it's hard to designate as purely physical health issues or mental health issues, like chronic pain, right? It seems to fall between those. Acupuncture is very good for that. I did professional training in shiatsu, and I practiced it professionally for over 10 years. Because, like I said, it's always important to do a meditative art, a contemplative art, a moving mindfulness art, and if possible, a therapeutic healing mindfulness art. And there's deep connections between shiatsu and acupuncture. So I think within, a realm of reasonable plausibility in terms of what there's empirical research, especially, like I say, that stuff that falls between the cracks, I think acupuncture is a good idea. Kira Kroger, I've discovered body armor in my right foot ankle. It's associated with an injury. I've dealt with the trauma around the injury in therapy, but there's still a lot of emotion associated with that. How do I best handle that? So if you like, in clear honesty with yourself, you think you've dealt with the therapy, because I'm not giving you therapy here. I want to remind everybody that. Then I think what you need to do is two things, and maybe alternate between them. Try a session where the emotion that comes up and you direct metta towards that emotion. You just direct metta as if it was a person. You may even want to name it. Some people name the emotion, the particular emotion, especially if it is familiar to you. Notice the word familiar, like a family member. And then direct metta towards it. Direct metta towards it. And it probably shifts around. But direct metta towards it. And then alternate that with unpacking it with the 5 factors of inquiring mindfulness. And keep alternating between those. And what will slowly happen is it'll start to articulate itself to you, and you'll start to enter into a dialogue with those emotions, and it will take time. The mad truth. With general Vipassana, we are focusing on being in the body, but with deepening Vipassana, we seem to be moving from the body and into the mind. Is this not counter to our initial purpose? No, because the deepening Vipassana is only 1/2, and I'm going to show you next week, of what you're going to be putting into with prajna. There's a sense in which you're trying to get, this will sound metaphysical and sort of, I hope that doesn't come off as pseudo-Zen. When you do move to that space between your thoughts, there's a sense in which you're moving beyond the mind and body together, but not in the sense of abandoning them and getting into your headspace. But they're always there as a foundation, lifting you into this place. And then this is going to be half of prajna, and in prajna, the body is going to be deeply, deeply involved again. So yeah, you do want that. The way the body is present to me in that depths is I go. I don't like using this language because it sounds like somebody who spent too much time in certain parts of California. But my body is present even in the depths of Vipassana, but not as a spatial entity, but as this energetic ground, the dynamic ground that actually makes my mind possible. Because that's actually what your body is, your lived body. It's the dynamic ground of your consciousness. Okay, I hope that answered everybody's questions. These questions were so good today. I mean, it's just so encouraging, because the quality of these questions, it means to me that I think I'm teaching you and it's working. So I really appreciate this. It's very encouraging, and I hope I'm being helpful to you. I really want to thank everybody for joining, and I really want to thank my good friend and techno major Mar. He was behind the scenes dashing around trying to make things work, and as always, like some sort of quintessential last minute appearance of the superhero, he made it. I also wanted to thank Jason, who took over a lot of extra duties this morning while Amar was trying to get back to us. Please like this video. As I mentioned, it will raise the visibility in the YouTube algorithm. If you do like the whole stream, and that will help me reach more people. In connection with that, please, share this video series and these practices with as many people as you possibly can. I genuinely think it will be very helpful in these difficult times. Please subscribe to this channel to be notified of video. To receive notifications, and you'll also find lots of videos on my channel within Awakening the Meaning Crisis and Voices with Vervaeke about so many of these topics that we talk about in depth and put into a broader framework and a broader context. So remember, please, we are doing this every weekday morning at 9:30 EST. Remember, continuity of practice is more important than quantity of practice. There is no enemy worse than your own mind, but there is no ally, no true friend greater than your own mind. Take care, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.